Good afternoon. I'm Dan Tupper, President of the Board. This is the regular meeting of the Jefferson County PUD Board of Commissioners. It is Tuesday, excuse me, January 20th, 2026, 4 p.m. JPUD will be offering both virtual online meetings as well as in-person meetings unless advance notice is provided. Online participation audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. If you're calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise your hand to request to speak. I'm calling us to order. I'm Commissioner Tupper from District 3. If we could get a roll call.
Jeff Randall, Commissioner for District 1.
Kenneth Collins, Commissioner for District 2.
Thank you. We have a full board and a quorum. Are there any, we have an agenda before us. Are there any changes, additions, or corrections to the agenda?
Move for approval of the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. We have an agenda. So we'll move on to item number 4, public comment. The public comment period allows members of the public to comment, limited to 3 minutes each, on any items not specifically listed on the agenda or for items that are listed on the consent agenda. Prior to any public comment, members of the public must first be recognized by the president or the designated chair of the meeting and are not permitted to disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct and fair progress of the commission's meeting. After an initial warning by the president or designated chair of the meeting, individuals who intentionally violate these guidelines through actual disruption of the commission meeting will be dropped from the meeting. And it's not required, but if you give your name and location within our district, that would help for the record when you go to speak. And with that, I will go to the room first. Is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment?
President Tupper, can I interrupt for a moment?
Oh, one moment.
I just wanted to call to the commission's attention that there's a new podium that's been installed in the room. And if folks in the room could come to the podium to address the board, it would, I think, help facilitate the orderly transaction of public.
Thank you. I forgot I didn't even hardly notice it there. So yes, if you feel comfortable and would you please use the podium for any public comments? Thank you.
We had R2D2 in the room.
Mr. Stover?
The first for the podium.
Break it in.
So I have two comments. One, thanks in advance to Jameson and anyone else from the PUD staff that may want to join him at our annual HOA meeting in Water Street Cotton Building, 6 p.m. on Thursday this week. We're designating the first 30 minutes for PUD presentation Q&A. Look forward to that. Second thing, I watched the video from last meeting, especially the report on the December outages, 17th and 18th, I think, and the need to get extra help on that from the Mason County, I think. I have a question for staff, just for my own interest. I wonder what percentage roughly of those restorations could have been handled automatically with automatic recloser versus manual intervention, which I assume was pretty much the scenario for all of the outages that happened during that period. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, and we won't do any discussion until we've gotten through all of the public comments. I'll leave that to the discretion of the general manager if that's something he wants to take on in this meeting. Otherwise, they may want to get with you offline. So again, we will move on. Anyone else in the room? Mr. Boyd?
Got a few things here. So bear with me if you would. First one is I noticed that fiber is planned to run all the way up to Maynard Peak. There's no residence up on top of Maynard Peak. And I was wondering how that was being funded. Because that's a long ways and a lot of money. And I was wondering if other viable options were looked at, especially like, from wireless backhaul to Ocean Grove, where there's already fiber. There should be an absolute clear line of sight up on top of those water tanks up to Maynard Peak. The other thing was Last meeting, I asked for a low income housing transport update. Your attorney said 2 meetings ago that since they were all low income, that he didn't see an issue with this. I was asked by Commissioner Randall if there was more that I wanted to say, and actually there was, because I asked Will O'Donnell to allow me the option when you guys came up with a low income rate to allow me to pay the 5-year rate and then give me the option to switch to the low income rate if I wanted to do so. I was given the option to either one, leave 43 households without service, pay the full rate without a contract, or sign a 5-year rate. I was literally strong-armed into signing a 5-year contract with the PUD for service at Seventh Haven. Or leave 43 households without service. And the last thing is that JPUD's open access policy is not preferential or unbiased. Will O'Donnell has consistently said that pond connections may not be resold by the end user or shared with other services addresses per the broadband policy. But there has been he has consistently allowed PUD retail customers to do these, even having PU staff install equipment, knowing and to facilitate this being done. This forces me to pay a much higher rate in order to get service to these customers, keeping me from competing. I can name 4 locations off the top of my head.
About 10 seconds, Liam.
Yeah, where this has been done, but I obviously won't say that in a public meeting, who they are.
Thank you. Again, we'll defer any questions and discussion till after everyone has commented and at the discretion of the general manager when it comes to the day-to-day operations of the utility. If there's a policy issue, the board might weigh in. Is that Roger or anyone else in the room? Seeing no hands, we'll go to the online. It looks like Roger. Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. I'm Roger Risley.
Still muted if that is. Is it, I can't read. It ends in 2.
I think it is Roger.
Yeah.
Yeah, 246.
Roger Risley, you're still muted.
Am I still muted?
Still not hearing you, Roger.
Oh, he was unmuted. Now he's muted again.
We can hear him.
Try one more time, Roger. You were unmuted. There, okay, now you're unmuted. Try it.
Okay. Yeah, the prompt was confusing me. Sorry. Yeah, wanted to give compliments to the Sims Gate. Hello?
Just want to make sure our system's working. Joel, can you unmute and talk?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can hear
We're not hearing
Roger.
anybody online, so everybody hold on. We got to get our tech in the room here straightened. Okay, Roger or Joel, one of you say something real quick.
No, I don't think.
246.
Oh, there you go, Roger. We can hear you now.
Okay. Roger Risley, District 2. Like the article on the Sims Gateway on the website. I thought there was a lot of clarity there that had been missing for the last 5 years. Anyway, I had a question about the stump removal. Who's paying for that? And to be clear, I asked this question to the last manager, and he said that in our tree policy where it says we do not remove stumps, he said that was just for private persons. I have to take that sitting down because I'm not allowed to dialogue, but I thought this would be a good time to bring it up again. There's nothing in the tree policy that says it's for private people only. This looks like a case of too big to pay if that's what's happening. So I wanted to know how much it's costing to remove the stumps and who's paying for it? Thanks.
Thank you, Roger. We did hear the first end of what you had to talk about there, but it sounds like you wanted to know when we do stump removal, who exactly is paying for those costs? If it's on the utility side, is that kind of what you wanted
He's
to?
referring to the Gateway project and what was shown on the website.
On the
He's given
Gateway?
Good
Okay.
info on the Gateway project, but asking about the stump removal and who's funding it on that project.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Is that
I don't want to have to pay for it. It's
okay?
not
Thank you, Roger. That's clear now. I didn't catch it all. Thanks, Jeff. All right. Anybody else? Public comment? Seeing none, I think I'll go ahead and close a public comment and ask the general manager during general manager and leadership reports if he wants to address any of those items. So with that, we'll move on to item number 4 or 5. I didn't miss anybody, did I? Okay. So general manager and leadership reports.
Okay, so have a few to update on. We have a I think I touched on this in the past, but just wanted to clarify that we now have a operational trunked radio system that the PUD is using in partnership with Washington State DOT. So Washington State DOT built with some grant monies a very capable and good coverage system that allocates frequencies very efficiently to users of the system. It was primarily built for Washington DOT customers, such as the Washington State Patrol, Washington Public Works folks that have to work on the highway system under the state. But the state created a provision to allow counties, which are also a construct of the state, to fund a share of that system and participate in that system. And we took advantage of that and now have an operational radio system that we're very grateful for, that has filled in some coverage holes and we believe creates a safer working environment for our crews to be able to communicate with people that are controlling parts of the system that may make working situations for them safer than they otherwise would be if they can communicate with them. They can communicate with each other, and we can advise our crews when we're about ready to take switching actions that they need to be aware of. So operationally, this just creates a much better environment for our crews, and they have better confidence that they're hearing the broadcasts across our service territory. So there's potentially things that we'll learn about that we aren't thrilled about, but everything so far that I've heard has been positive feedback, and we're just very thankful to the Washington State Department of Transportation for allowing this partnership and allowing public agencies to share their incredible system at a very economical cost. And I see it as being win-win across the board because we're contributing to some of their costs and
You're 3 minutes.
having I'm spreading it. If I may have a little bit more, I'll keep going. Also wanted to note that we have Pacific Pole Inspection actively testing Jefferson PUD power poles in the Port Townsend area. We believe, the work that they're doing not only assures that the assets are safe, but they're also taking steps to extend the life of those assets by putting cartridges in that that are fumigants that help reduce risk of rot. So we're finding opportunities to and assets that need to be replaced. But if those in the community see folks from Pacific Pole Inspection in their neighborhood, they're doing important PUD work for you and us. Wanted also to note that our customer service team is seeking an additional grant for our home electrification and appliance rebate. So that's TBD on what the amount is. We're aiming for potentially $1.5 million, but there's going to be other applicants where they may have to reduce that award amount If we're successful, we may not get that full amount. Our application is due in about 2 weeks, so we'll look forward to reporting back on our success or hopefully a success on that project. Just wanted to note in our last board meeting, there was a public comment about the water meters not being allocated or assigned correctly to our customers. I followed up with the commissioners once we had done our review of that situation. And if the public was listening to that and probably didn't have an opportunity to hear management's response, the meters were correctly allocated in our billing system. We physically verified that the meters in question were actually serving the customers that our billing system had them assigned to. So we took the opportunity of hearing that concern, that feedback, to do some field investigation, and there were some things that we found with regard to our mapping that could be improved, but the fundamental point that the meters weren't being assigned to the right customer, which is a pretty significant issue, was found not to be the reality of the situation.
Thanks for the follow-up on that one.
If I can have some more time, I'll take a stab at some of these. So, Mr. Silvers, thank you for the invitation for the Trailcrest HOA. I currently have a conflict, but I'm eager to see if we can mitigate that. And I know Jameson's looking forward to addressing your homeowners association. Your second question is a little more complicated. You essentially, I'll translate how I heard it, is that you're interested to know how distribution automation, which is automatic functioning of power system devices, could have restored portions of our distribution system during the windstorm. And it's a complicated question. Distribution automation normally occurs on, well, when it occurs, it's not actually normal, but when it does get deployed, it gets deployed in places where there could be another source. So most commonly on our distribution system, that would be where feeder A comes to a common point of coupling with feeder B. You're not supposed to tie those feeders together long term, otherwise you'll lose both feeders for a single event. So you normally isolate them with a switch, and distribution automation can reconfigure where that switching location is to pick up customers that would otherwise be out. So where this could be relevant is on feeder outages more commonly than feeder taps. So taps don't generally have a second source. So when they're out, they're out. But on a feeder that does have a loop tie, you can reconfigure. So I don't have the data for how many customers were actually part of a feeder outage versus a tapped outage. I'll just tell you from my experience, I've studied this problem quite a bit. And if the study case, which is also in the PNW, reflects Jefferson's experience, about half of the customer outage minutes tend to be from feeder outages versus tap outages. So if that case holds up here, then in theory, on a single incident, you could have reduced the customer outage minutes by about 25%. So with half being on the feeder and being able to cut those in half by being able to move the distribution automation point, you could, in theory, optimally improve by 25% overall for the outage. What's a little more complicated is in storm situations, you can have a number of various damage locations. So sorry to belabor that point, but it's of interest to me. It was an interesting question, so I'm engaging it a little more than probably I should. Mr. Boyd's, I don't have anything to say about Maynard Peak, but we can look into that. So I understand your question, and so we'll have to follow back up on that. I also understood your point on the low-income transport challenge. In my understanding, there is a third option that we didn't discuss about which choices you had, but I understand where you're coming from. And I don't have an answer for you on the pawn resale, so we're going to have to follow back on that one.
Joe, is there any update on staffs being able to develop some options on the low income transport rate?
It's my continued belief that it's a complex challenge. I know how we handled this in my past life when we offered wholesale service to retail partners, we required the retail partners to have a low income rate because generally speaking in rate making, wholesale doesn't tie into the
It's not
retail.
not looking past the wholesale
right.
customer.
Right. So in other words, I have experience in this space, but not with the proposed solution that the commission seemed to want to pursue. So I don't
Okay.
have,
I guess I just need to circle back then to Joel because I can personally, I think there may be something we can do, but it's like not, normally in a rate case like this. So I will talk to Joel and see if I can.
yeah. And as you know, with wholesale, we have to be uniform and fair with
Right.
all wholesale parties. And
Right.
we're talking about, generally speaking, low income requires low income verification. And
Right.
so that may work in one particular case. Does it scale to all other cases? There's just a lot of complexity that staff is seeing in this ask that I still think is going to require more time.
Well, and for me, part of it is that it's kind of the one building that, unless we got another building that was all a low income building, which we might, and we might have a wholesale service, but we have the one now. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
stop with my question.
Yeah, and I don't want to arbitrate issues out tonight. Commission has a chance to respond and the public has a chance to comment. And we'll leave it with the general manager to what he wants to talk about offline.
The question on Sims Gateway, I probably can't entirely answer, but I can offer a little bit. The policies that apply to the PUD do not appear to all be in play on a partnership project that has funding sources. So there's a way to look at the way I'm looking at the Sims Gateway project is it's not exclusively a PUD project, and therefore the way that the PUD does business is not exactly the same in that case. Where essentially there's one lens that I think is convenient for me to look at in this case is this like a customer funded project. It's like the customer being the Public Infrastructure Fund board is asking the PUD to do certain things, and they're funding those things through the PIF funding mechanism. So it is my understanding that if the project scope stays on track, which is still an if, but if it does, then it would be the allocated responsibility to the PUD to remove the poplars. My further understanding is that the arborist experts that have weighed in on poplars do recommend that the stumps be ground so that they don't sprout.
Very aggressive
immediately.
roots, and
That's
they've
right.
done damage to buildings. So if we leave them there, I think it's a risky
Right.
thing.
So just by taking on that scope doesn't mean that weighs in whether that's equitable in how we do other stump situations. This is a public infrastructure fund project that is paying the PUD for a share of that work. So I just don't see them being in the exact same light as any other stump that may come along in the right of way or not. So
Do we know what percentage of that project the tree removal and stump removal is roughly?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I'll say roughly it's about $100,000 to do the poplar removal. We put out a bid. We got a number. I'm just misremembering exactly what that number is. We also have an engineer's estimate of about 600,000 to do the poles, but that scope is at 30% design, and there's partnerships that need to be honored, and we're running those designs by stakeholders, and the design may change, so all those things may change. So it's just
Okay.
a work in progress right
Thank
now.
you.
That concludes reports of management.
So any other questions from the board or the general manager? So Leo, we've had comment. I'll take one quick question.
I'm just kind of hard of hearing, so I just wondered, were all three of my things that I addressed, were those?
Low income Pawn and Maynard. Yeah, he said he had some
Not the comment about the specific customers and the PUD treatment.
And then-
that was the pawn, open access pawn question, right? I think the general manager said he didn't have any information on that. if I'm
That's
not-
right. 2 of the 3 I need to get back to you on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So nothing further from the general manager, the commissioners, or staff. We will move on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Randall, would you like to go first?
Sure. Oop, the right Word document up here. There it is. Okay, so looking back on the January 8th, EDC board met. There was a guest. Gene Ball was there representing the North Hood Canal Chamber of Commerce. We learned a little bit about them, and they have an executive director, which I didn't know, and it's a grant-funded position, so that's dependent on grants. But it was nice to have her there. She said that issues around Brennan remain lack of sewer and the flood designation, and the Lambert designation prevents new businesses. But it was interesting to hear that they have a chamber of commerce and they are engaged in some of the economic development discussions down there. David Balliff, the EDC director, gave a report. The EDC website is much expanded and is providing a lot more information about on Jefferson County. They've upgraded the benefits provided to staff. They now have health insurance, which they didn't have before. And he's recommending we really look hard at switching the EDC's legal framework from a 501c6, which is the kind of nonprofit that can lobby, to a 501c3 with the idea that there may be more funding and donations that they could get. So that's something he's pursuing. And we also talked a bit about the ICG economic strategy for Jefferson County, and the ICG meets next in February, I think February 19th. And I talked to the general manager about possibly having that as a topic at our next board meeting, so that when we go to the ICG, we will have already had the conversation here about what we think our role is in economic development. And it seemed like that could be done. Was at the audit entrance meeting on the 9th. Listened into some of the WAPUTA discussions on the 15th and 16th, and I was there for part of the day on the 15th. And I don't know if either of the two of you heard, and I guess it was on the executive committee the following day. When I look up at the mountains, it just seems to me like there's a lot less snow than normal. And I was kind of surprised to hear BPA make it sound like snow was not a problem. And I get that with the weather temperatures warmer, their loads are down. So that's a big part of the problem. They haven't been having any trouble meeting loads. But I was surprised not to hear that snowpack wasn't a concern. So I don't know. Did anybody else hear differently?
The Canadian snowpack ultimately that they referred to as being the headwaters of the Columbia, obviously, and maybe even the Snake, and that water, they're at 125%. Even though our mountains were at 90, there was going to be like 110 or 115% of
when you look at the whole thing.
When you look at the big,
the whole river.
the whole system,
Okay.
all the different parts of the system. That was my understanding.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to go over anything else at WAPUTA. Let's see. I'm looking ahead. Energy Northwest is meeting this week. I'm probably just going to zoom into a few of those meetings to hear some updates. NODC also meets on the 22nd, which I'll be a part of. From the 24th to the 29th, I'll be traveling to a warm place, which I will not disclose because my partner doesn't know where we're going yet. It's going to be a surprise for her. And then on the 28th, I'm planning to zoom into the PPC fuel meeting. And that is my report.
Thank you. Mr. Collins?
So I attended the, on January 9th, the audit entrance meeting. Meeting with the general manager on the 12th. Attended various parts of the 3-day WAPUTA conference from the 14th through the 16th. And Commissioner Tupper, if you could pass on a recommendation, I thought it was very, very helpful having APPA provide a report and some dialogue. And I think it would be a bonus to the WAPUTA meetings for that to be for that to happen regularly, whether that has to happen quarterly basis or whatever. It was really good dialogue.
So you think in the Energy Committee then that because APPA, American Public Power Association, that's who you're referring to? That
Yes.
It would be a good thing to have that be more of a quarterly or regular.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll pass that along.
Thank you. Had a meeting with legal counsel on the 19th, met with the general manager earlier today. Looking forward to meeting with the general manager on the 26th and the 2nd. And I think I've also calendared attendance at the fuel meeting. which will be whenever it is.
That is the 28th.
And that's my report.
Thank you. So I attended the PPC Members Forum Zoom meeting on January 7th. There was a presentation by Greg Cullen of Energy Northwest on the status of Energy Northwest projects. And there were 3 presenters from companies that market and or operate battery storage technology within our industry. I also participated in a WAPUTA ad hoc building committee meeting that outlined potential corrective maintenance actions that need to be pursued for the WAPUTA building. I attended the PPC Executive Committee Zoom meeting on January 8th. Ron Gatterberg from Okanagan PUD was accepted to replace Humaira Falkenberg on the executive board. There was information provided on the progress that BPA is making on the residential exchange program contract process. Side note to that, Ryan Neal from WAPEG, to which we also belong, has got a letter composed, and they're about to send that off with, in conjunction with several other entities, including PPC, in support of public power towards the approach that BPA is taking on that residential exchange policy and program contract. Progress on the Columbia River Treaty was discussed. There's optimism that the U.S. Senate will take up and ratify the treaty sometime in 2026. So we'll have to see. That's a long time coming. That was like 10 years now since they had to state whether you're going to stay or get out, and they're coming up against those deadlines. I attended our BOC State Auditors Entrance Conference on January 9th. Met with General Manager Wilson on January 12th. I attended the WAPUTA Commission Education meeting and legislative reception in Olympia on January 14th. Thank you to General Manager Wilson for attending the legislative reception and WAPUTA last week. He did a great job on our behalf and the association's behalf. So thanks again, Joe, for making that trek down there. Excuse me. I attended most of the WAPUTA committee meetings on January 15th. The discussion on copper theft during the telecom meeting was kind of informative of how it leads to people looking to steal copper, how it leads to fiber getting damaged, and people haven't designated or understand the difference between a fiber cable versus an electric cable or ground cable. So that was kind of an interesting discussion. Also, during the Energy Committee, that there was legislation in Olympia right now that could possibly lead towards the state creating a transmission authority for energy, and it's concerning to most of the utilities that's probably not a good thing, that the state probably should not really get involved in things that we have a lot better knowledge and a lot better experience with dealing with. So there's some legislation down there that we're tracking and watching that could prove detrimental. Even though it sounds good, it could prove detrimental to our ability to be resilient and reliable when it comes to our energy.
Well, it sounded like it wasn't really going to address the problem, but the problem that the industry feels we have is permitting, and that FSEC would be a better solution. That FSEC permit.
That's one definite part of it, is the process.
And that it sounds like there's a particular legislator who's leaving that the legislature wants to give a win to, but it doesn't necessarily.
And it ties into legislation back in DC as well that they're working on for permitting and other things back there. So when we go to DC in February, these are some of the topics that we'll come up against. Another topic that transcended all the committee meeting was the work that WAPUTA is doing to ensure that utilities receive an exemption for emission standards that require heavy trucks to be EVs in this state. That's a huge one too, and it seems like it'd be more of a fight than you would think it would be to make our vehicles that have to go out in the storms when the power is out be EVs in all sorts of conditions and travel miles and miles and expect those things to be effective. So that's one we're fighting for there. But it transcends across to water utilities and other utilities that have just as critical infrastructure as we do. I also attended the WAPUTA Executive Board meeting on the 15th. I attended the WAPUTA Board of Directors meeting on January 16th. The federal talking points for the DC fly-in for the APPA rally in February were adopted. After the Board of Directors meeting, I attended the Waputa Facility Assessment Ad Hoc Committee meeting again, looking at capital work and maintenance issues that, are going to have to be done, evaluated. And it looks like, we're probably, it's fairly substantial. So there could be, dues could be impacted and potentially a one-time fee assessment to take care of some of those things to get things on track there. So
I was surprised at all of the things that are wrong with the building being relatively new.
17-year-old building. And there were some issues during construction that they kind of signed off on that maybe are coming.
Just sounded like the waterproofing around the basement
Yeah,
was
yeah.
had
Yeah.
failed, and that's really expensive, hard stuff to go in and fix.
And there are other things that go into that as well. And there's some funds within the budget to deal with some things, but it's a pretty big list and getting bigger all the time. So anyhow, I'll attend the Energy Northwest meetings on the 21st and 22nd. And something I wanted to run by you two gentlemen is there is going to be a vote on one of the inside director positions. Jack Jonda has given his notice that he's going to retire or resign from that position. And there's 3 candidates. I'm just curious if you guys were curious and how I vote up for us. They're all 3 commissioners from PUDs. We know them all. It's Jerry Osmussen, Shan Roenbothen, and Nancy Barnes. Nancy Barnes is from Clark County, Shan's from Kittitas County, and Jerry is from Okanagan. So if you guys had any input or not, or I'm going to leave that to my discretion.
Well, it just seems like the way that this is Energy Northwest again, right?
Yes.
Yeah, does things is I think Jerry is the president of the board or the vice president. It seems like he's in the slot that normally gets appointed. So I'm guessing it's kind of a done deal. And Jerry's going to be.
I don't know. Again, that's why they vote.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put it on your radar that that's something on Wednesday that I'll be voting, as our voting member that
Any of them, I think, would be competent.
just wanted to put it on your radar. What else? Also, Energy Northwest is doing some presentations on the Cascade Energy Project, the LLC, which is the small modular project with Amazon. They are going to set up some a presentation. Now, whether it would be live or in person, I'm not sure yet. If that's something that we would be interested in getting that presentation, because in May, we will have to come up with a resolution as a board to say that we're in support of that project. So that's just something that's coming our way, and they will be doing some presentations to the member utilities.
I think I'm interested in it.
Okay.
And again, the whole idea has been that Energy Northwest is shielded from the actual costs of the project. The cost of the projects is the developer, is Amazon's cost.
Well, as you were a rep before, and when it was starting out, and you've been to some of the meetings and heard, so I think you have a pretty good grasp of it. So.
I mean, there are some costs, I think, with site ownership where Energy Northwest may have to do be responsible as the site owner for the due diligence and testing and things on it. But most of the risk seems to be the cost of the technology and construction, and that should be Amazon. So as long as it stays there,
And when Greg gave his report at PPC, he did say that Amazon has come through on time and in full with all of the funding that they have to meet those benchmarks. So they've been a good partner thus far. So,
President Tuber, can I ask a question then?
yes, go ahead.
So if we're going to have them come, I think we need to clarify whether it's to get advice on how we're going to vote as board members, or if we're shopping for a power purchase agreement. That when NewScale was doing something similar, they were clearly looking for utilities to be considering a power purchase agreement.
Yeah,
with
if that's
their-
the sales pitch, I don't think we're interested.
Again, that's something you could present to the board of what your thoughts on are, because I know we have to, with the contract, we have our tier 2 allocation we have to decide on at some point too. The two don't align, but yeah, that's something you could bring to the board and saying, hey, we should consider a power purchase agreement. I'm with Jeff. I don't think it's probably going to be
expensive.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that would play into what our need is going to be. But
That's my assumption as well. I just want to clarify.
so my personal interpretation was that it's just to instruct us on what's been done, and to Jeff's point, some of the safeguards that are in place to us as a utility and to Energy Northwest as a group and organization.
Well, and there is a legal thing that happens when they have that vote. It changes who's kind of overseeing. In my recollection of it's changing is who's overseeing and reviewing the project, because it gets back to the RCWs by which Energy Northwest is set up to begin with.
Right now, the board of directors has control over some of the decision making, and it's more about taking in information, and then ultimately it reverts back to the executive board.
Exactly.
The executive board, once we get to that point, they will have the
Right.
final say.
And I guess that from the fiduciary standpoint, if we are a member of Energy Northwest, these are big things. It seems like it'd be worth it to us to have as much information we can and to answer any questions that come up. So, and I think that could be a special meeting. So it, if it doesn't, it's not gonna take.
Yeah,
up-
Not a sales pitch. That's
No.
fine.
Yeah, I think we're probably some consensus is we're not looking for a sales pitch on a purchase power agreement, but we may very well have a workshop for something that would tie into this with strategic planning or something
Sure.
along the way in that time frame between now and May. I think
Okay.
it's May. I think the deadline's kind of May.
Thanks for
as
the
I recall.
details on that.
Yep. So I'm going to meet with our general manager on January 26th, and I will listen in on the Zoom January 28th meeting for WAPAG.
Okay.
And that concludes my report. So with that, we will move on, unless there's any other questions. We will move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed below on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussions on those items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. So anything?
So I'm afraid I reached out to staff and our attorney ahead of time, and I'm afraid that I cannot find the contents for the wastewater resolution. So I'm going to have to pull that one. I've gone to the website. It's not there.
Resolution for 2026.
It's just for the record, it is there. I was able to, I just want to, I mean, you may not have found it, Commissioner, but it was posted.
Okay, well, I closed.
So, and it's fine how you proceed. I just want to make it
I'm gonna
clear
pull
that it was
because I
posted. Yeah.
can't talk about it.
All right,
Yeah.
so do we want to move it to new business?
Just
Or
somewhere.
old business,
Yeah.
unfinished business? We'll call it unfinished business,
Thank you.
item A. What's wastewater?
And maybe my computer is keeping going and knocking at the old door, and there's a new door and I can't see it. I don't know what.
Okay.
Totally understand that.
So with that, I would move that we accept it with that modification, move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 It's unanimous. So with that, we will move on to new business. For the new business section discussions, please hold public comment until each presentation is done, but before the board takes a vote. Excuse me. 8.1, Beckett Point wastewater operations. Presenter is Kevin Camfield from the Fisherman's Club. Is someone going to introduce Kevin, or who wants to take the lead, or should I just?
So
Okay, Commissioner Collins.
Kevin has been very much involved with the discussion of wastewater rates for Beckett Point for a number of years. He's part of the committee, and his group has independently commissioned a professional to evaluate their system and the pricing. And that being said, I'm happy to turn the podium over to Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins. And thank you for pulling up my presentation. I was wondering if I was going to be able to share that directly or not. Will I be able to move the slides, or do I just need to instruct someone when to turn the page?
Please instruct when you want the next slide.
Okay, great.
You'll need to ask.
Okay. All right, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for making time for us on the agenda. I really appreciate it. I know your time is tight on these. So I will, if you go to the next slide, the one up. Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to cover fairly quickly three main areas: background, some background on Beckett Point and our law system. We're going to make some brief comments on the new rates, kind of our perspective for you on how we see those rates. and compared to the rate study that we did, but not really looking for agreement necessarily on anything there. And then want to spend most of the time on the last portion, which is collaboration on our drain field longevity. And I'm going to try, there's a fair amount of slides here, but I'm going to try to move through them fairly quickly. And if we could hold the questions to the end of each section, that would help me move along more briskly. And then if I forget and move forward and you got a question, please stop me. So with that, we can go to the next slide. So Beckett Point Fishermen's Club is a community of about 130 voting members. We have about 100 sewer hookups on our lost systems, and we are located south of Cape George on Discovery Bay. Following the 2021 PUD rate study, we met with PUD, which included Commissioner Collins, General Manager Street, Samantha Harper, Mike, your financial guy, met with us a number of occasions, probably 6 or 7 times across 2022, discussing the basis for the special rate class for Beckett Point and opportunities to lower some of those costs. And then in February, late February of 2024, we completed a commission cost of service study that we did and presented those findings back to the Board of Commissioners in early April of 24. And we have engaged Mike Morin. Mike owns Aqueous System Solutions in Bellingham to complete our cost study. And we have engaged him going forward to work with us on system health assessments and testing, specifically around our drain field. Mike designed our loss system back when he worked for Parametrics. 25 years in the sewer systems industry. And he started his own business back in 2009, shortly after leaving Parametrics. So any questions there before I move to the rates?
Like you good, Kevin.
All right, thank you. So this one, basically, wanted to first just let you know, we appreciate the phase-in of the rate increase. It is a steep increase and appreciate that you're going to phase that in over a number of years. We also appreciate the postage stamp approach you guys have aligned on. That greatly simplifies our communications with you guys on rates and working with you on rates. So we appreciate both those things. We do want to recognize that the current cost of operations, I went back and listened to your meeting on December 2nd and FCS presentation. And your current cost of operation, as I understand it, is 130.98, which is toward the top end of that peer group you guys were benchmarking with. Our rate study that we did came out on the lower end of that range. We came out at 57.22. And so there's quite a difference there where there's good reason for a lot of that difference. Also, I think a good cost engineer would say there's probably plenty of opportunity in between those two numbers as well. We think that the PUD's sewer staff does a great job. They're prompt, they're professional. Randy's obviously got a lot of knowledge about the system, and we enjoy working with them and you. And our perspective, kind of walking away from our own rate study, and we interviewed 3 different providers. 2 of them came out and toured our systems, gave us quotes. And our impression coming away from that was that you guys might benefit, and we don't have all the knowledge to say this for sure, but is our impression that you guys might benefit from an expanded customer base, that you've got good staff, good systems, but may have some fixed costs that would be beneficial to distribute more broadly. So that was our overall assessment. And there are two opportunities for cost savings, we believe, but whether or not that translates down to the bottom line rates depends on if we're, going after fixed cost or variable costs. And so for us, and I think Commissioner Randall mentioned this in the December 2nd meeting, our role as leaders for Becker Point Fishermen's Club, and you've got 3 of the 4 officers here today. I'm the club president. Our job is just to continue to evaluate what we see as enhanced service with the PUD at a premium price versus the other option, which is the lower cost and perhaps more involvement on our part or additional risk on our part if we go to a private provider. So our job is to continually evaluate that value equation for our members. And it's our desire that those two numbers, the closer they stay the same, the easier that decision is for us. But for now, we're gonna remain with PUD and appreciate the work you guys have done in this latest rate study. All right, any questions before I move to the last bit?
I have a question.
Commissioner Randall?
Hey, Kevin, thank you for being here. And I guess, we talked a little bit about the different situations, whereas Calla Point, the system is owned by the PUD. So the customers there don't have really a choice to say, hey, we want to have someone else maintain our system. We bought the system from the developer. So I'm kind of curious. I don't know if there's anything more you can share since, basically you guys own the community septic system there. So you have that responsibility of, okay, we've got this asset, and it sounds like where you're falling on the equation is we've got this expensive asset. If we hire someone else to maintain it who's doing maybe being less conscientious, maybe the asset is at risk. Is there anything more you could share about that? Because it's interesting for me because and I think about, okay, if you did depart and you went out on your own, then it's kind of like, okay, now you're asking us to come back into the system, and we don't know. Maybe all those things played into your decision of it's risky to go off on our own and then try and get back with the PUD if for somehow the system was damaged or not. I don't know. Is there anything more you can share? I'll just stop there.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is fair. I think we did buy the system. We actually went back. There was some discussion that I think got put in an engineer report early on that talked about ownership, the PUD owning our system. And then it just got carried forward. We actually went out and did a Freedom of Information Act request and got all the documents from you guys, all the documents from the state. And we could not find any place anywhere where we gave up ownership of that system or sold that system.
Right.
We talked to 3 service providers and private service providers. One of those provides service to one of the big parks over on Indian Island, I think. And then the other is a local service provider. The one that provides the service to the park, they did not want to travel this far. The local one, we don't believe their quality of service is at a level that we would trust them with our system at this point. And the third one was Schold, who does work locally and has a good reputation. They did not have the capacity to take on another system.
Okay.
So those were, and then with you guys, you can tell us if this is correct or not, but we feel like, so if we go with a private firm, they have some staffing issues. They may or may not be able to um, take care of those as easily as a larger firm such as yours. Um, and I think you guys have a rigor that's sometimes imposed on you because you're, deeper pockets and some other things like that that we believe lowers our overall risk as well. So we think we get good value from you guys. We do, as I said, as those two numbers, the 57 and the 130 get too far apart, it forces us to kind of come back to that question, and we'd rather not come back to that question, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I thank you for sharing a little bit more of that because you are a customer, but you're a collective customer in this case as a homeowners association. So it's interesting to hear some more of those thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. That was good.
May I address the slide, Kevin, while you have it up?
Sure.
Chip Wilson. You mentioned affordability, and I appreciate you bringing that up. We're seeking, and we have constraints as well, but we're seeking to provide an affordable, competitive service for all of our customers. So we share that value with your community as well. And you mentioned essentially an economy of scale that potentially provides a win-win, and I just wanted to echo that. That's my perception as well. When we can serve more customers with our existing staff and resources, it creates an opportunity for all customers to benefit. So again, wanted to echo your point there. And then just on a technical point, this was a snapshot. These comps that you have on the table, as FCS informed us, those were backcast. So those were basically 2025 rates. So most service providers are exposed to inflationary pressures. So it's hard to know exactly what they're going to be in 2026. But there's likely to be some shifting to the right of other people's costs as well. But anyway, we don't take that for granted. We appreciate the partnership and want to continue to be affordable both for the systems that we own and the partnership that we have with Beckett Point.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I did read through, I got a message from Jose on our rate study last night. And I don't agree with all the points he made in there, but there were some points there that I do agree with in terms of it's a bit of an apples to orange comparison between your operational cost and that of a private operator. So okay, so we can, if there are no more questions, we can move to the next. And this is where we really want to partner with you guys, and we think you guys bring good value. On one of the many places you can bring good value is making sure that this very expensive loss system lasts as long as possible. And as we look at our system, we recognize that the most expensive component of the system to replace would be our drain field. So we want to talk about drain field longevity here. So our system, our loss system was built back when it was one of the early entrants into this category of systems. And we actually have two independent loss systems because back then there was a limit to how large they could be. It was 14,500 gallons per day. So we needed more than that. So we actually have two independent systems. There's a lot of other regulations regarding loss that came in after ours started up. For instance, a lot of the operational and maintenance manual requirements didn't come into play until 2011. So if you look at ours, it's a relatively thin document compared to today's. So our system, on average, we looked at the flow rates for 2022, and on average across the whole year, we used 11.6% of that total capacity. And our peak usage is in July, and we used about 15.6% of that capacity. So the system is well over-designed, which is good. We have each system has three high-pressure drain fields, two primary fields, and a spare. And that system operates with solenoid valves that distribute the fluid to the fields. indexing valves, manual indexing valves that distribute the fluid to 4 zones within those fields and 24 laterals in those fields. When those fields get dosed, they don't get dosed all at once. So the flow doesn't go to the whole field at once. It goes to one lateral at a time. And it is a high pressure system, and the holes in those drain lines are only 3/16 of an inch diameter. So you're squirting water out of those lines at relatively high pressure. And those valves index every time the pump comes on to go to a different lateral. And those valves are prone to sticking, in which case they continuously dose the same zone or lateral, and those drain holes are prone to plugging. So if you move to the next slide. So this is our drain field. It's this is a Google Map view. It's 5.6 acres, and it represents a relatively large portion of property compared to our overall community. And most of that forested area there gets pretty steep after you get out of the area of the drain field. So next slide. So this is the schematic for the field itself. You'll see the 6 fields. On the lower left, you see field S1, S2, S3. Those are the 3 fields for the south system. And then on the upper right, you'll see field N3, N1, N2. And those are the fields for the north system. And then on the upper left, you'll see a gravel road there, and you'll see 6 tanks. Those are the settling and storage tanks that feed those fields. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So if you zoom in on that Google Map view and you overlay that schematic on top of it, you can see where those drain fields are in that area. Again, the ones for the south system are on the lower left, north system, upper right. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see how we've got what I'll say uneven fertilizing going on up there. You'll see that, and we recognize that Mother Nature is not symmetrical, but it does look like some portions of the fields are not getting dosed. Some portions of the laterals may be plugged, and at least a couple of the fields, the upper right and the lower left field, are not getting used very much at all. So it doesn't say that we've got a failure necessarily, but it is cause for some concern and is worth checking out to find out what might be causing this uneven vegetation growth up here. So if you go to the next slide. So replacement of that field would require new construction, new equipment, a whole new area potentially. The replacement cost could easily be in the $1 million. I talked to our system engineer today. He said it was likely closer to 2 million, depending on the type of failure and type of repair. Your capital plan that you guys laid out in early December won't cover this. Our capital reserves that we have set aside won't cover it. And so we are very interested in making the system last a long time. The local Discovery Bay community here has had 2 drain field failures within the last 10 years at a cost of total for those 2 fixes is going to cost them $1.5 million. And Mike Moran, our system engineer, is the one that they called in to redesign, design the new replacement system. So they can fail quickly, or they can last a very long time. So if you go to the next slide. So yeah, drain fields can last like up to 50 years. Ours is lightly used. It's well designed. If we take good care of it, it should outlast all of us. But the system design engineer recommends testing, flow testing, pressure testing, potential cleaning, and some ongoing rotation protocols, and make sure that those are being followed. So we're hiring Mike Moran to develop an inspection and testing plan for our drain fields. We're having him out in mid-November to perform an initial visual inspection for us. And we would love it if Randy could join us for that initial inspection if he can. And others are certainly welcome. And then we would like to follow up then from that initial inspection with Mike Moran, with Randy and Jose, if he's the right person, to review that inspection summary, discuss, hey, what did we find? Is there any issue that needs resolved or not? And then what those potential follow-ups might be. And then our plan is to retain Mike on an ongoing basis to do these annual assessments for us. It's a relatively small cost for us to protect a very valuable asset, and we think it augments the ongoing maintenance and operation work that you guys do. And I'm an engineer. I'm a chemical mechanical engineer, and I find that it is always good when we can get the engineers and the operational guys to talk. So if Randy could join and we can have Mike there too and talk about, well, this is what we designed the system to do. And Randy can talk about, well, this is how it's actually performing and sort of some of the issues we see. I usually find those are very fruitful discussions. And so we're hoping we can have some of those here as well. So that's the plan. We're going to start into this, have Mike come out and do some visual inspections and some looking around. And then we'd like to partner with you guys to see if, if everything's going well the way things are operating today, or if there's some changes that we'd like to make and how we would, go about doing that together.
All
So
right.
that's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. So I guess it comes down to the last part there. There's an ask, whether or not we would participate and attend your inspection process. Is that kind of what I'm hearing there?
Yeah, it should be less than a day, sometime in mid-February, and we're happy to schedule that with Randy if that's helpful.
I'll just say, since we're getting Beckett Point to get more skin in the game with the rates, it would be nice if we could partner and be available for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I have no objections. This falls within the general manager's purview of how we want to approach this with his staff and crews and budget. And
Yeah, so what I've heard from Kevin sounds reasonable. I was enjoying his comments about engineers and operations aligning. There's that's utopia when that happens, but there's both parties often have different points of view, but it's good for them to listen to each other. So I'd certainly want to play our role in listening to the engineers who are designing and potentially refurbishing this system. My only subtle remark is I don't know what Randy's schedule is. Jose leads that group, so I think if we could just commit to Jose appointing an appropriate and qualified person from the PUD to be there. That may or may not be Randy. It's up to Jose, but we're also trying to do some cross training, so we may try to have two people there. So I just exactly who the resource is, I don't want to commit to at this point, but commit to the concept and want to support Beckett Point's good stewardship of their system.
so you heard board consensus, Kevin, and you heard the general manager's response. So it looks like there's a willingness to coordinate and cooperate and work with you guys. So again, I think the board would say we'll leave it up to you guys and the GM to sort it all out. Is that fair enough?
That sounds great. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any further discussion on this topic? So thanks again, Kevin, and the rest of your board and the community members that might be listening in for all of your participation and engagement. We really enjoy this part of it to hear what the public has to say and be good partners.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
All right. So with that, we will move on to item 8.2. And this is a little bit of a housekeeping issue since we have the new GM and we've had some board rotations. I just want to go through real quick on some of the memberships we have and who our noted representatives are so that staff can get that all updated and make sure all the entities that we deal with know who's supposed to be there and who's voting and who the alternates are. So we'll start with Waputa. I don't think there's been many changes other than I do know there's an opening right now for the communications committee for a vice chair. I don't know if the GM is
Government relations
and government relations. Yeah.
Saw that.
If you're aware of that and whether or not we have anyone we would want to put forward for that. That email came out today, I believe. So there's an opening there on that committee. Everything else, I don't think there's any changes on energy, telecom. Jose is our water representative. I'm the alternate, I believe. Commissioners, anything on those committee
I mean,
positions?
basically, if we're happy doing what we're doing and we feel like the information is
Yeah.
flowing,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
keep
and
it.
we're all listed as alternates for staff's purposes. The commissioners are all listed as
Yeah.
alternates.
Yes.
That's not considered, they want to lead who is the voting member and that sort of thing. I will say there was one other thing I noticed when I was looking at the minutes for the board of directors meetings. It did have a star next to me, and I thought I saw it in here too, that they had me as our voting member. And I know Commissioner Collins has been our voting member. So I just wondered, you were on executive board before. Was that something that Waputa just put that down as they assumed that, or is that something that had changed, or? Because our utility has,
No one's talked to me about that change.
yeah, and I saw it on there too, and I didn't
I'd
realize it.
assume- I had assumed that I would continue to be the voting member,
Yeah.
having done it for quite a number of years.
I was just gonna clean that up when I went down there for the next meetings to make
Thank
sure
you.
that they're aware that I'm on the board, on the executive board, and
Right.
I have a vote as an executive board member.
Correct.
But you will remain our voting member
Yes,
for
yes.
the.
Otherwise, we lose a vote.
Right, so I want to make sure that you were aware of that and that.
I wasn't aware of
Yeah,
that. Thank you for
I noticed
making
that when I was
yeah.
looking at the minutes and stuff, so. Other than that, there's nothing else with Waputa that I'm aware of. Northwest Public Power, NWPPA, Joe has some history there. I mean, does the board feel that the board should have the voting member, or should we make the general manager the voting member for that one? Any thoughts? Because I know they have an annual meeting this year that I may go to the annual meeting, and I think Joe might be considering it as well, so.
I am, but I also would note that NWPPA offers each one of its members an opportunity to choose who's the voting member close to the meeting. So within about a month of the meeting, each entity designates the voting member. So we could nominally decide now, and we could change our mind by the time that ballot comes forward, depending on who's actually going to be there.
I don't have a problem with naming the general manager as our representative.
Neither.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
And I could be the alternate if necessary, because like I said, I attend those meetings probably more than you gentlemen
If
do.
you're okay with that, Joe.
Okay, so that's that one. No Annette, obviously Jeff is our voting member and Joe is our member rep, correct?
Right. They have a board member and then the member rep.
Right.
That's how
So
we
there's
have
no
that.
changes there. We haven't deferred the member rep to any other staff member. That's going to remain with the general manager. Okay.
Right.
Want to be sure of that one. Public Power Council, I've been the voting member on that and I would like to retain that, but I would like to have the general manager be the alternate unless you gentlemen, one of you wants to be the alternate.
No, and it conflicts with the EDC
Does it?
board meeting.
Okay.
So I think, yeah.
Just, all right, just like I said, there's some housekeeping here. Energy Northwest, we've made that rotation. Do we normally have an alternate for that, or how does that normally work? I'm getting asked that question there. So is that something that a board
We
member?
have an alternate.
I
Right.
mean, and I think they're less, well, at least I think so. I think they're less formal on that. If you're unable to make it and one of us goes, I don't
Yeah.
know that they say, well, you didn't send us a memo saying who it was. I think they're more relaxed about it because it's a bigger
Right.
board.
And I think it's a board a commissioner position more than a GM, but
Exactly.
I'm just curious whether you guys felt the same way or not on that, if we have a name an alternate.
I think
Or-
if you can't make it, then you just
Okay.
should reach out to us ahead of time so that someone else can participate.
Okay.
Because those are important meetings.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna skip the infrastructure advisory because that's on the other, it's further along and it's stated properly. Firms, Ken, I assume you still want to continue on with that?
Yes, I am now secretary, having rotated out
okay.
of the president of the board position. So
And again, just for future reference, is that usually a commissioner or could it be a staff member? I'm just curious as to how that board is structured.
I'll have to find out. I think it's primarily commissioners, but don't hold me to that.
Okay.
I'll find out.
Yep, like I said, just kind of looking
Our
forward.
staff members who attend,
Okay.
particularly the administrative committee, is staffed by typically non-commissioners.
Mhm. Okay. North Olympic Peninsula Resource Conservation Development Council, I assume you want to maintain that, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm fine doing that.
Again, is that a
it-
commissioner-oriented position or can it be GM or staff?
It's mainly electeds. The city manager for Port Townsend participates in that. Everything else, I think, is typically electeds on that. Those are all Zoom now, so they're easy to.
Again, because we have a new GM and he may not be familiar with some of these things that we have, I want to kind of talk about it so that we can all be on the
Yeah.
same sheet music.
In a lot of ways, they have some grants they're overseeing, but they're really, as we saw at the ICG, they're really a organization that coordinates and reaches out to the partner organizations and how can we help. And a lot of it's a communication forum for what is happening in each of our counties. So and basically anybody that wants to zoom in is welcome to, but I'm happy to continue to do it. And I think it kind of relates to the EDC. Those two seats kind of go.
Well, have they been meeting? Because I haven't heard you say anything about them here.
The NODC,
recently.
it's been because
we do pay.
They're
to belong.
meeting, and they're handling this recompete grant that got put on hold for a while in the fall, so there hasn't been a lot to report.
Okay.
So they are meeting, and they meet the same day as Energy Northwest. They meet on Thursday afternoons.
There's just some days of the week that are tough.
So I would usually catch those as I was driving back from the Tri-Cities listening.
Yeah. And I skipped one, and that was NRECA, which we no longer are members of NRECA. So it's my understanding.
It's pending. I was hoping to have a conversation about that. So we had a conversation within staff about our utilization of NRECA training services and other services that organization. It's a very valuable organization. Its primary focus is in cooperatives, and we're not a cooperative, but we have used cooperative financing mechanisms. We used a cooperative consultant for selecting your general manager. There's very natural partnerships both on the policy side and in training opportunities. However, when we we're trying to be economic and look at where we're spending our membership dollars, and we saw a significant amount of overlap with an existing organization, NWPPA, and both based on our plans to engage with NRECA in 2026 for training and what we saw as some significant overlap, staff was recommending that we seek to not be NREC members and save the approximately $37,000 per year in dues. And just for point of reference, Shannon helped me deliver all this. She knows it off the top of her head, but NWPPA's dues is just under 20,000.
Does that include the broadband? Because we had been part of the broadband NRECA.
It does, although our broadband team made a previous recommendation to this one that they weren't seeing the value in maintaining that membership.
In that?
So
Okay.
we had incrementally made the decision to withdraw from the broadband dues and participation in that part of NRECA, then reevaluated the rest of our NRECA.
So it was even higher when broadband was added.
Right.
Okay.
So did we let it lapse, or are we running down the clock on our current membership? Just curious as to how that went exactly, because you mentioned the GM search. There were some tools and some services that came with that. So I'm just curious of where we are in that whole process.
Melanie's working with the team to still deliver the services that were part of that package deal. So they're still owed to this. So that's not relevant in the conversation for 2026 dues. The what was the other part of your question? Sorry.
The tools that, because of the GM search, we utilized in our ECA, and there were some tools and services that came post hiring that.
Yeah, we're still getting those.
Okay.
So the question, I guess, I've understood that the commissioner training program has been useful and helpful to some of you, perhaps all of you. Shannon, I know she doesn't want the mic, but she did a pretty good cross walk between the NRECA services and NWPPA services. So staff doesn't feel super strongly about this. We're just looking to save funds where we can. So we're basically looking at where we're invested in and seeing if there's a good return on that investment. And it wasn't feeling it. We weren't feeling it on NRECA. So we are recommending to the commission that we drop our dues for 2026 and withdraw membership from NRECA. We'll still have the opportunity to participate in those training opportunities. They'll just be at a higher cost, a non-member dues rate.
Yeah, I'm agnostic to our membership in NRECA at this point, and it's your budget. And if you want to move dollars from here from not paying something there, then I mean that's your prerogative. I have no objections.
Yeah, I think early on, especially early on, it's funny. NRECA, got us because of the headhunter search that we utilized them for. NRECA got us our auditor. We only knew about them because Kevin and I and maybe others were there in DC, and they had an accountant firm from Texas. And at the time we couldn't get auditors. It was COVID and it was terrible. And I think when we started with broadband, it was really helpful to go to those broadband meetings and hear from utilities all around the country that were doing broadband and some of the issues, because we were just getting started with it. So that all being said, I'm not opposed to you finding savings, because where we can't find savings, it has to flow through with rates. So I appreciate you looking for savings and being honest about what you see staff using it. I've been to their trainings before, including their commissioner trainings. I don't anticipate going to NRECA conferences, so if staff doesn't either, I guess I'm okay letting it go. But for me, it is a little ironic that we found them so useful in the NREC in the search for you. But I'll just leave it at that.
All right, I didn't want to take too much time belaboring.
Did you have any other thoughts on it?
Well, the fact that staff or commissioners could attend their training, albeit at a premium, that pretty much addresses my one concern, because I've also been to their training in the past. So I feels like low-hanging fruit for a savings.
Okay. I'll make one other irony. I'll add that to your list, Commissioner Randall. NWPPA used NRECA's service to hire their executive director as well. So they're well known for outstanding quality in their professional services. That service isn't offered by NWPPA. So we would potentially still have access to that service. We just have to pay the non-member rate again.
Okay.
So I think on an annual basis, we can review this and see if our utilization of their training and services merit the membership discount or not. And frankly, I and other staff have really high opinions about the service offerings that they have, and we're very aligned partnership wise with them in a number of ways. So we're just having to make difficult decisions with our dollars, and we just feel like this is the best path forward.
Well, I hope when we communicate with them, we tell them about, the challenges we're facing, and that we've been really, appreciative of the services. Communicate all that, because those are real people there and they've done good work for us.
they're reaching out to have that conversation. So.
Okay.
All right, so I'll move us along here on this one. We got a few more to go. American Public Power Association, APPA, the former general manager was our voting member and I was the alternate. So I'm fine. Again, when we go back to DC as the primary, that's their primary meeting of the year. And there's a lot of industry policy votes that take place. So again, willing to defer to the GM to be our voting member. And I work as the alternate because I make that trip relative because of Waputa and other reasons. I'll be making that trip this year and maybe at least one more year for sure. So you guys don't have any objections to Joe being our voting rep to APPA, I would suggest we do that. And I'll be the alternate in case we're both there and he can't make it for whatever reason. If he has an emergency meeting with one of you or somebody has staff, or whatever, I can always sit in. So
I'm comfortable with that assignment too.
okay. And then we'll move on to after APPA, WAPAG. Again, I attend those meetings pretty regularly. Again, I'm fine with deferring to the GM if it makes more sense, because a lot of that's more technical. It's more power purchasing and that
Sometimes
sort
it's
of
not
thing.
even voting, it's
Or even a
really-
vote.
It's really
Yeah.
Ryan's time and his expertise and giving that to us and us feeling like we have more of a voice with BPA negotiations because we're with these other utilities a lot like us. Whereas in PPC, you can kind of feel a little lost in the mix. So
And there's a lot of overlap with PPC and that sort of thing. So again, the reason I want to ask this about this one in particular is to maybe have the general manager be that person, because they do reach out, and it's better to have one point of contact than all of us responding differently. I think the general manager probably has the best pulse of what's being talked about in of what's going on in the industry and policy that maybe he could act upon whatever comes out of them for a response to yes, thumbs up, we like that. Or if we have comments, obviously the board gets notifications, we can always reach out to the GM. But
if there was something controversial, we could always hear it at the board and direct the manager to vote in a specific way. But the WAPEG stuff is so contractual. It's so BPA contractual, so technical that I'm fine with that. I mainly listen in just to feel like I'm relatively
Right.
informed.
So is the general manager okay with being that point of contact or vote?
Yeah, that
If
makes
there's-
sense to me. I had that role 2 utilities ago.
Yeah.
Last time I was a WAPEG.
And we can always list the three of us as alternates if necessary. They're not very formal about that, I don't think either. So just want to make sure we're kind of getting this all put down so that there's any questions later on, everyone kind of knows the roles. The Public Infrastructure Fund, I've been the rep to that. I would like to continue that. I do believe that is a commissioner position. As the lead vote, again, I would defer whether you gentlemen think a board member should be the second on that, or if the GM or his designate would be as an alternate, what the best path forward is. Any
Seems
suggestion?
like a commissioner role.
Yeah.
Okay, so you think one of you gentlemen
Sure.
should be the, okay. So put both commissioners down as alternates?
Sure.
Okay, there's the answer to that one. NOLA, North Olympic Legislative Alliance, I don't know, does it even exist?
They exist. I haven't participated in any of those meetings. Have you been part of those? Yeah, I don't know how it's possible they're more active during the legislative session. I don't know. Do we pay anything?
It doesn't say show us painting. So my question is, does it make sense to have a policymaker or the board be on that, or have a staff member who works, in particular, again, the GM is part of the public sector cabinet, which are the directors of the port, the city, the county, and the PUD. Maybe it makes more sense to have the general manager as the point of contact, because they have, with the other administrators, have that kind of that every day or that monthly, is it twice a month you guys meet or every week or?
It's scheduled every week, but
Yeah.
attendance isn't that
Yeah.
often.
So they're a little more in contact than we are as boards. We do obviously the ICG meetings where we talk about that, but then we all go a lot of different directions, NODC and Economic Development Council. We have WAPUTA where we do stuff. So it makes sense maybe to have that being the point of contact as the GM.
Yeah, and I think like anything, any of us can show up to any of these meetings. And again, the North Olympic Legislative Alliance is more about collaborating when we're trying to lobby our legislators in a common manner, kind of coordinating the message. So, Joe, with your knowledge of that one, are you fine with being the lead person on that?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. PNUC, Pacific Northwest Utility Coordinating Council. I think I've made one meeting since we became members. There's a lot of redundancy there with other
They're
entities.
interesting in that that's the only snapshot we get into the investor-owned utility world in our state. and what's happening with them. And I think that one was a pretty low cost
2,800.
member. Yeah, it's really inexpensive. The quality of those things is amazing when you can make them. So I love that group.
Well, we have you listed as the point of contact. So.
Yeah, I mean, and again, any of us can go.
Right.
So it's the whole agency, and it's not really much of a voting thing. Again, that's more of information, you know, and load forecasting and what.
All right.
Because so much of what we do, we just hear public, and the whole investor-owned utility is also going for the same, you know, kilowatts of power out there, and I think us being aware of them is important.
So I better move us along
Yep.
because we're running along here. Workforce development, you're listed. Is that still in place?
It's there.
Okay.
We have a seat on it. I listen, and sometimes it hasn't been real active.
Jefferson Utility Coordinating Council. Not familiar with that one.
I'm sorry, which one is that?
Jefferson Utility Coordinating Council. It's on this list that I have here. I'm not even sure what it is. It says we're paying dues to it.
That's one we should look into because I don't
Yeah.
know what that is.
So maybe staff can,
What's that?
The water coordinated system.
it just says Jefferson Utility Coordinating Council, $150 dues. So
Oh, that's pretty minor. That might be, is that part of them having to update their plan
Yeah,
every so often? And
what?
yeah, so
Oh,
part,
okay.
that's part of our, we probably have to be part of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Surveyors do.
Yeah.
As long as staff's aware of it. I don't ever see anything coming out of it. Not sure it's the WOOC, but anyhow, we'll come back around to that one another time. Home Builders Association, again, I'm assuming the GM is our,
I think Jameson.
or is it
has been
Jameson? Okay.
participating in that and
Yeah.
really does a good job.
Agreed.
Jameson. Cooperative Response Center, I don't even know what that one is. Anyone have a clue?
Cooperative Response Center is who handles our after-hour call-outs.
Okay.
So the co-op model.
So that's a staff related,
It could go either way.
yeah.
I mean, I think currently is G.
Yeah, it's me.
Okay. No,
Okay.
I don't see a reason to change. Fire chiefs, myself as a commissioner, and then we have Jeff Dodd and Jose are on that. Unless anyone wants to see anything any different, I'm fine with that. Unless they are, okay, no staff pushback on that. And then we have AWWA, American Water Works. I'm assuming that's going to be either Joe or Jose. That
Agreed.
is our representative to that.
Mhm.
So, because I don't know if we have that list anywhere. So is it Jose the lead and then Joe, or Joe you?
That works for me. Yeah.
Jose.
Jose's going to have to tell me how to vote. So.
Okay. ICG, we all know that one. Economic Development Council, we moved. Jeff has got that one. And PNWS, AWWA, that's that's the WOOC. The WOOC is,
So you have the Washington Utility Council, which is that. And then you have the water. The Washington Water Utility Council.
so again, I would ask staff, is this Jose and then Joe? I don't see the commissioners having a interest in being the contacts for that.
Yes, please.
Okay, so there we go. And that completes that list. So let's get moving along here, unless there's any other questions. Okay.
So, one point, the rotation had been annual for the EDC, and they made a request for Jeff to continue. And I think, as we do with some of the other organizations, have a 3-year rotation. Makes sense to
So-
have that for
right.
EDC as well.
I'm fine with that.
And we line that up with Energy Northwest too, so we kind of parallel those two.
Okay.
I need to run a quick run to the restroom.
Okay.
If you, and you guys can feel free to keep going with the agenda.
Yep, we got a presentation coming here, so it'll take a little bit of lead time to get into that. Okay, so we don't need to take any motion on that. With consensus, we know our rotation on the board positions, and we know our rotation on Energy Northwest and NOAANET are getting, now we've included EDC into that. So, okay, with that, we will move on to item 8.3, the non-represented pay study. And I'm going to throw that to staff to do presentation by Millimans. Whoever wants to bring us up with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Tupper. So we have Lisa Hughes here, who is a senior compensation consultant from Milliman, and she conducted a pay study for the PUD's non-represented positions. She's an expert in compensation, and I want to thank Lisa and her team very much for their outstanding professionalism and thoroughness throughout this rigorous process. For those who aren't familiar with Milliman, they're a highly regarded firm in the compensation space, and we have several neighboring PUDs that use Lisa and Milliman to conduct their pay studies, and that has been hugely advantageous to us throughout this process because she knows the jobs in the utility industry really well. So for context, the PUD initiated a pay study to help ensure that our salaries are remaining competitive and that we update our salary structure to be best practice and industry standard and support transparent salary practices. So I will pass it over to Lisa and she'll walk us through the process of the pay study, a summary of the results, and Milliman's conclusions for us.
Thanks, Melanie. Good evening, everyone. As Melanie said, my name is Lisa Hughes. I'm a compensation consultant with Milliman. As Melanie mentioned, Milliman is, or maybe didn't mention this part, but Milliman is a global consulting firm. And we have a very strong presence within the Pacific Northwest. We're headquartered in Seattle. And we do, in addition to global consulting, we do many salary surveys that we publish annually that cover the Pacific Northwest and have been doing that for about 40 years now. I've been working in the compensation arena for about 25 years, mostly in the consulting space, but also managing compensation for a couple different organizations. So have sat on both sides of the table. Melanie, am I good to share from my end? Okay, I'm going to.
And we want to do a time check with how much time we think they're going to take.
Sitting 30 minutes.
Okay, that's going to push us past 6. And then we still have this item we pulled off consent. So I don't know if there's, and I guess from commissioner's perspective, we've had extensive presentations on this. So I don't know if it's worth trying to keep them moving along.
Yeah, I'd say I don't anticipate any questions on this.
Yeah.
So are you asking Lisa to kind of go through the
Speed it up.
expeditious version?
Yes, we've seen this before.
Okay.
And we've kind of held it up for other reasons. So
Expeditious version for me. So I think she'll play.
Okay, I will be quick. If I could just get a confirmation that you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so obviously we'll just kind of jump right into it. Essentially, just kind of want to take you through the process of what we've done as part of the study, as Melanie mentioned. It kind of exists in two phases, right? One portion is to assess the competitiveness of the current compensation program. The second is to take a look at the pay structure in terms of kind of the infrastructure and how it's set up. The first step in the process is to define the labor market. And as you'll see here, the primary components of the labor market are geography, industry, and size. The reason why we look at those are because the market varies based on those items. And so we want to pay attention to the landscape in which you are competing for labor talent. And so those are the items that we look at. For geography, we focused on the state of Washington, industry, obviously utility, although there are some instances where all industry data is used. Size really only comes into play for senior management positions because the market really only varies according to size for those types of positions. The other important point to note here is that when we use the term market, we're typically referring to the market reference position, which is the median of the market or the 50th percentile. Just want to note here that when we match to the market, we're matching on responsibilities. as well as education and experience, and not just on title. We take all of the information that we gather, we create a weighted average, and at the end of that, we create what we call a composite so that there's an overall value for each position. And we use that market value position to compare to the actual salaries of the PUD so that we can assess competitiveness. And then when we look at the pay structure side of things, what we do is we review your current structure, make a determination whether we think that is the best practice going forward, review or propose a new structure if we feel one is warranted, and then a job hierarchy, which is essentially how the positions fit within that new structure. In terms of the results, let's jump straight to that. You'll see that I'm just going to speak about it quickly, and then I'm going to show a visual, which I think will be a little bit easier to follow along with. The bottom line is that the PUD is competitive. When we look at the average of all positions and their comparison to that market median, the average is 4% above. Obviously, there's some variation there, but the majority of positions are above the market as opposed to below the market. One of the other things we like to look at is what we consider the competitive range, and nearly all of the PUD's positions fall within this competitive range. Okay, I'm just going to jump to the visual. If you're like me, I like to see things visual. This helps me understand. What we're looking at here is a visual representation of all of the jobs we looked at. The blue dots represent the PUD's jobs and the relationship between the salary at the PUD and the market value. The red and green lines are kind of the two ends of the market, the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile. And then in the middle, we have the market line, that market median line, which is the gray line, and the PUD's line, which is the blue line. So you can see, obviously, here in terms of the blue dots, pulling the blue line a little bit above the market at the lower paid jobs, and then that blue line dipping just below the market at the top end. And that just shows that, you know, some of the lower paid jobs are a little bit more competitive compared to the market. The higher paid jobs, a little bit less competitive on average compared to the market. And then I've got one additional view to look at. So when White talked about that competitive range, saying nearly all of the jobs fall within that competitive range, typically we think of a competitive range as plus or minus 15 to 20% around that market median, which is, when I get to the structure, which represents what a typical salary structure would look like around the median. And so you can see those same blue dots are all falling within that competitive range. Any questions on this before I get into the structure discussion?
Not seeing any hands in the room.
Okay. Okay. So we also took a look at your pay structure. And your current situation is one range for every job, with pretty wide ranges. This can be administratively burdensome because instead of a set number of ranges, you basically have a range for every job. So 40 to 50 different salary ranges that need to be kept track of. Makes it a little bit difficult to budget simply because of the number. It also does not provide sort of a career progression from an employee perspective. So those are some of the reasons why we wouldn't typically recommend a one range for every job situation. So what we did is we used that market data that we collected for all the positions to propose one salary range that would house all of the non-represented positions. That's built, if you think of that visual where I showed the lines above and below the median at that 15 to 20% range, that's what we typically use to build a structure. When we build the structure, we keep the middle of the structure aligned with that market 50th percentile, and then build out minimums and maximums around that. That's in terms of kind of that sound design criteria. Those ranges represent the competitive range of pay for those positions, and we use the market to guide those decisions. So we start a little bit narrower at the bottom part of the structure, and then it gets a little bit wider as we grow. In terms of midpoint to midpoint progression, it follows a similar pattern. It's a little bit smaller at the bottom of the structure, and it grows a little bit larger toward the top of the structure. All of those design criteria are driven by the market, and it allows us to keep a structure in place that provides enough variability for pay, but not too much. Doesn't have, the minimums are not too low, the maximums are not too high, and it gives a good range of competitiveness for you to operate within. When we assign the jobs to the grades, we use each job's market value to place it into that grade structure. So when you have your structure in place, all of the jobs that exist within the grades have similar market values. And so you have a structure that is grouped by similarly valued positions. And I know it's not in my presentation. I know Melanie's going to share that after, but I just wanted to give you a sense of the design criteria that we use when building that structure. I think that's it. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So commissioners, we have any questions? Like you say, we've seen most of this process before.
So I guess I have a question for Melanie and the general manager. So we have a resolution in front of us, but it doesn't actually have the Milliman study or any of the salary ranges. And is that intentional?
We are going to pull up the salary table right now for the commission to view.
So I guess I wonder, how can a resolution be effective if it's not referring, where's the meat that we're adopting?
And I'm planning to add that into the agenda. After this presentation, we were making some adjustments.
So is this like a first touch on the issue, or did you guys want to have adoption?
The plan was to outline how we got to this table while the table was being finalized. So this table reflects an application of Milliman's guidance, specifically as it relates to the PUD positions.
Thank you, Joe. So this is the outcome of Milliman's study. This is the updated salary table for our non-represented roles. And as you can see how Lisa explained, there are 12 different pay grades. Currently, our non-rep salary table has 42 individual ranges. So we've consolidated the jobs we've grouped them by similarity of market value. And we have a minimum, a midpoint, and a maximum, as Lisa explained. That gives us some flexibility when determining salaries based on education, experience, and job-related factors, but while also ensuring internal equity. So this salary table would supersede our current one. This is the one we would use moving forward. And it's important to staff because of retaining our current employees, the skilled employees that we have, as well as attracting new employees to the PUD so that we can effectively operate the utility for our community. And we're also committed to pay transparency. Lisa touched on this, that it's easier to see the career progression for our roles in this new table. And if adopted, we have educational materials to share with our employees to make sure they understand this new structure and understand how pay decisions are made. And then it's also important that we have a sustainable framework. This is the framework that we would use in the long term, but as the market shifts, we can update the data in it. As we add new positions, we can add them to the job titles, and then slot jobs into different grades where appropriate, if the market changes for those roles. So our recommendation to the board tonight is to approve this non-rep salary table.
So I can't do that because this is the first time we've seen it and you don't even have the whole thing on the screen. I can't see all the job classifications. Joe, one of the things you talked about, is it okay to ask some questions?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Is that in evaluating your employees, one of the things you'd like to be able to do is offer performance bonuses, and that you also no, that's not the right terminology.
I'm not intending to have performance bonuses. I don't have authorization to do that, and that's not my intent.
Salary increases based on positive performance. Is that
That's
better
right.
language?
Yes,
Thank you.
that's right.
And then one of the things you also talked about looking at was where does that person's salary in relation to kind of the market? That's kind of what I heard you say.
Mm-hmm.
So what I see here is that's kind of broad grades. Would you still be looking at like an employee, comparing them to what salaries are for that specific employee and their job, or these broader categories of jobs? Does that question make sense?
Well, I'll try to give an answer, and you can tell me if it makes sense to what your question is. So when we're traditionally, and in the simple way that many utilities offer pay increases is they just look at the COLA and then they apply it to all employees. This market data, as was just shown, shows that there's a spread between some employees being above market and some employees being at market and some employees being below market. And it's been my experience that it's a best practice to take that into consideration instead of just applying the same COLA to all employees, to bias that COLA based on whether they're already above market. You would reduce the COLA, or if they're below market, try to catch them back up to market by increasing the COLA. So that's one dimension of consideration for applying merit-based increases on an annual basis in accordance with a board-approved classification structure. The other dimension would be their performance. So again, setting aside market and just looking at performance, you could, and I'm recommending that to our staff, that we apply a biases in changing from a standard COLA to being somewhat higher than COLA if their performance is great, and somewhat below COLA if it's not great. So then we have to blend these two things together, market and performance, to come up with a actual pay change for 2026. So this is an essential part of it. It's an essential part of two things. One is assessing where our employees are at on the market, and also recruiting new employees. So we have a senior, an executive level position that we're seeking to recruit, and the current range is significantly below where Milliman is showing us to be in market. And I'm holding that recruiting notice until I can recruit within the recommended range that Milliman is saying is the market. I don't want to negatively impact our recruiting because we're not in the market right now.
So I guess my reluctance to approve this is it wasn't in the packet. And as I said to, initially that we've seen this before, this is actually really different than the information that Melanie brought to us, which showed specific jobs and specific salary ranges. So it's a pretty different approach. And I haven't really had a chance to look at these job titles and the categories they're falling in. So I guess I'd appreciate a little more time to look at that. The finance director position, is that the one you're talking about? That's the open one. I think that's a high priority position to advertise. I don't know if there's a way that you could get the commissioner's approval to proceed with that, because we need to.
Well, how much time?
I think the next meeting would be fine. Now that we've got this information.
Yeah, the bigger question here is, again, this comes down to, the first touch and things that aren't, necessarily included. And I brought this up last meeting, trying to push things into consent that really haven't been a first touch. This is a process. We got a lot of new people. I think we can work this out. I can, talk with the general manager. I'm fine with us not pushing this forward today unless there's a reason why it has to be today. You're asking to bring this back one more time, or?
Yeah, I'm asking to bring this back one more time. So for me, the finance director being right under the assistant general manager in the salary categories, I don't have a problem with that. So I don't know if it's possible for us to verbally, instruct you that, hey, item number 20, which shows a salary range of 164 to 238, we're cool with that. Proceed with the finance director ad. I don't know if Joel wants to weigh in, or if that's something we can give support and direction to the GM to proceed on.
Is that a question for Joel
It's
directly?
kind of a question for Joel.
Any thoughts?
And for Joe too. I don't want to tell you have to do something.
My understanding from Joel is that these classifications need to be approved by the commission. So I'm not authorized to post a finance director without the commission saying that this is the salary range. But maybe I'm wrong. Joel, go ahead.
No, I mean, the statute is pretty clear that you make recommendations to the commissioners on your staff and pay, and that's what this is. So I think probably best to do it. I mean, you could, I mean, the commission could say, oh, by the way, range 20, if that's what we're talking about, we're fine with you publishing and
that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. That. But, I guess the issue then, and I leave this to the commission, I mean, is are you going to come back next time with particular changes in these ranges? And
I just have some questions about a few of the job positions and the categories are in that I'm not clear on, and I don't know that I should be asking them an open session.
Okay.
As part of it, because it's sort of personnel related. But could we say that, Joel? I mean, would you be?
I mean, you can say that. I guess I would encourage that you come to some sort of agreement with the general manager on how to proceed on that particular job recruitment process.
So you just have one specific ask on one page?
I just have a few of the positions I need to get some clarification about what they are.
Okay, so
and which, what jobs they specifically relate to, because they're not clear to me. But the finance director one in that salary range, I think they've shown it, the market supports it, and it's right under the GM, so there's no question that one qualifies for where it's shown.
I just want to make it clear that I didn't assign these, and my understanding is also that Melanie didn't assign these. We engaged a consulting firm who knows these jobs where they sit in the market. So we provided our job descriptions, and our consultant identified where these positions generally slot in the market. And so I don't know if there's additional clarity on that, but if you ask me a specific question about whether an electric operations superintendent should be a 19 or 20, I will not have any information to bring to bear on that. That's consultant information.
So I think there is consensus among the board that the number 20 slot, which you would use, you would reference in recruiting a finance director, meets with our approval, and that you're specifically directed to use that so that you can move forward in advertising, recruiting for that position.
Yeah, I mean, basically at this point, you're putting something out there saying what the salary range is. It's right there. And by the time that person is in interviews and so forth, this is going to be long done. So
I heard Ken make a motion on accepting salary range 20 of this proposal.
yes, and I'll second that.
Okay. So you want to take care of this tonight? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, so we're just
line 20.
Line 20.
and
Okay.
directing the general manager that he can advertise the
Okay,
position.
motion's been made and seconded. Now we'll go to discussion. Any further discussion? I saw one hand from the public. Was it relative?
I have a comment on the whole scope, not just that particular motion that you
Well,
made.
I'll allow it before we take the vote to move forward on this particular issue.
Okay. So, again, Phil Stover, District 1. I've been involved in IT infrastructure management for years, many years. This is a huge undertaking, and I really like what's been presented here as far as the market goes, and you've identified job titles and grades. There's another important piece of this which gets to the point of career progression and also gets to the point of how to marry two different dimensions. You want to run the business with the right amount of skill and experience and workforce to get the job done effectively. You want to run it also financially as lean as possible so the rates don't go through the roof. So what's not in this picture is how many grade 15 customer service managers or GIS analysts or resource managers does the Jefferson PUD require to get its job done. And there's a limit to there should be a limit to that. And not every one is going to progress to the next grade level because you're overloaded. And so I'm sure, I don't know where that comes into your discussion, if it relates to this particular pay grade structure that you're looking at, but it relates to how you apply it and how you come up with an organizational model that has the right staffing components and the right number of people at those grades. So does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't start the clock, but I'm gonna call that your 3 minutes. And I do think that ultimately a lot of what we're talking about here comes down to this is the general manager's decisions and in conjunction with HR as to how we're going to organize the organization. So I'll just throw that on top of that. So again, we're still in discussion. Did the general manager have a question or a statement or?
Well, I agree with what was just said at the podium that we have tension essentially between trying to be operating an affordable utility and recruiting employees. I just would I'll make the following statement. Our mission is very infrastructure intensive. So much of our cost structure is tied to installing, operating, maintaining, and replacing assets. We need highly skilled employees to perform these functions, and these employees are drawn from a constrained labor market, a constrained competitive job market. It's essential that our PUD remain competitive in order to support our mission of affordability. A simple view might be to try to get the minimum qualified candidate hired at the lowest possible cost. However, that approach is likely to lead to negative impacts with infrastructure decisions that have a much bigger cost impact to our community. So what we're presenting to you here is aiming for the median of the market. My previous employer, who also very highly values affordability, chose to index their market at the 60th percentile. So their median was at the 60th percentile. We're coming in, frankly, lean on this proposal and hope that we'll have a competitive response to some of the positions that we're recruiting through it. But we may have to come back to you and say that this isn't the right solution for what our needs are. It is a balancing act, as Mr. Stover just testified to.
So I'm going to call the question.
Any further discussion from the board?
No, and
We're
just
all good?
clarification, the question is on that salary range 20 and directing the
Yep.
GM to proceed. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
I guess one thing that would be helpful too, and I realize that when we look at like an organizational chart, it doesn't distinguish between represented and non-represented employees. These are the non-represented employees.
The scope of the study
Correct.
is just non-represented.
Yeah.
employees.
Is it possible to have an organizational chart of the non-represented employees? Do we have such a thing?
I don't think we have an organization chart that's just the non-represented, but we have an organizational chart that mixes the two together.
Okay. So we can at least look at the name and see where they are on
I
it.
suppose we could color the boxes.
Yeah. So again, are we going, anything else with this issue?
I think it's fine to bring it back next time. It would be nice to have an organizational, it'd be nice to have this in the packet. It'd be nice to have an organizational chart with it highlighted, either the ones that are, so we can tell which are the non-represented. And that would help me understand what these positions are and what they fall into.
I'll just make one more comment that I think is responsive to Mr. Stover's note. There is only, everybody in grade 15 and above is flying solo. We don't have redundancy. Now, you could argue that maybe someday we need 2 GIS analysts, but current state is one person at most. Some of those grades are not filled and may not be filled anytime in the near future.
Some of them have a 0.
That's right.
Okay.
1 or 0
quantity.
at 15 or above. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the staff have clear direction and guidance? Is everyone okay?
Yeah, and I think we'll need discussion on this next time too, so don't put it on consent.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So thank you, Lisa. Unless Melanie has anything else for you, we appreciate the presentation and you hanging in there and listening to us grind the sausage.
That's great. All right, thank you. And obviously Melanie knows where to find me. So as you contemplate over the next month, I'm here to answer questions if she needs me.
So we just have that one week pulled off a consent.
Yep. So, all right, thank you. We're going to move on.
Thank you.
To unfinished business, and that was the wastewater rates pulled off of consent. Is that just something we want?
Well, so we pulled it off. So first off, I couldn't find the rates, and then the rates are on there, but they appear to be the water rates. So we appear to have a wastewater resolution with water rates, unless I'm reading this wrong.
Let's see. That's the wrong resolution. I'm looking at the wrong resolution.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Gotta go way back up to the.
That's what it appears to be. Oh, come on.
Let's see where we at. That's on page 11 of the packet. I don't think there was a resolution, was there?
It's in the consent agenda.
Oh, there it is. Let's see. Yep, it does call out wastewater rates.
So were the water rates approved in the last meeting, and then we brought back the sewer rates for consent?
Yeah,
it was tied
think
together.
I think that's what we did, because we called out that schedule. We went around and around and called out that schedule 3 or whatever it was. I mean, the second point, Kevin was referring to it. He had a different one highlighted, but I can't remember why. I think we just wanted to see a clean version of it because it had all the things mixed together.
Yeah, so we believe this is the scenario that was reflected by the commission.
But this is water. Those rates are water rates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't, like Kevin actually had the wastewater rates.
Yeah,
in his presentation.
I was trying to find it. I was trying to see if I could pull it out and throw it at you, but I was I'm not able to find it.
I'm looking at wastewater rates.
Which page are you on, Commissioner?
Doesn't seem to be numbered.
So page 3 is
it's a part of the. So when you click on the resolution and you keep scrolling, you wind up with wastewater rates.
Okay. How about if we sync up with our consultant and bring back the resolution at the next meeting on consent.
Okay, wait a minute. Now I swear to God, this keeps changing. It's
What did you
different
click?
now.
What did you
Well,
click
now
on?
it's different. It's like Ken said when I don't know. It does.
We did, if I could, I mean, I think we're here in part due to some of my confusion. And I think we did post them today to be attached to provide proper notice, but you know, if it's a matter of another
Yeah, out of
meeting,
abundance of caution.
Okay, so
we can,
it's pretty simple. And I guess we just need to check, is this really what we wanted to do? But you've got the existing and the proposed is 9123 for all three.
Yes.
Is that correct? Is a simple question.
It does sound right.
Is that what was shown in that scenario 3?
I think that was the postage stamp rate.
Jose's got a sharper memory than I
What do
do.
you think, Jose?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that right? Okay.
Good.
So I'm okay proceeding now that we've got the right thing.
Tracked it down.
I mean, because I swear to God, it was like another time I opened it up and it was like the water rates with the 2/3
So-
valves and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Naturally, what do we need to do with that?
We need to
we can just
make a motion to accept the,
Yeah.
you've pulled it off consent.
I caused all the problems.
that was in the consent.
I move that we adopt a resolution of the Board of Commissioners revising, updating, and approving certain changes to the Jefferson County Public Utility District #1 water rates and the rates that are attached on page 2 are referred to as an exhibit, that those be labeled Exhibit A.
Page 3.
Second.
Page 3 after the resolution.
Okay, we have a motion moved and seconded to accept the resolution as presented. Is that correct? It is the resolution that was in
Yes.
consent. Okay, on the wastewater rates.
Yes.
Any further discussion? From the public?
I'm confused because there were 3 pieces of paper that said, they broke them down to,
Is this the agenda or some,
it was on the packet
okay,
and, I don't have them in front of me,
I will
but
show you.
3 different,
Yeah, this
so it
is.
seems like we've had some difficulty managing,
This is the.
navigating our website or no, or packet?
it was a bigger thing. It was, 3 different ways of signing.
Right, and we picked one at the last meeting and directed staff to proceed with that, and this is a new format. So it's
Okay.
the new rate is a postage stamp for next year, or for this year, of $91.23
91 for packet.
for all of them. That
All of them. They're all gonna be.
All
Yeah,
of them.
that, that's the postage stamp rate, is everybody that's a customer of that
Yeah.
class.
And there were,
pays the same
and
rate.
the schedule called for increases in following years, but this would just be. It would be this, and we'd have to look at in future years.
Okay.
Further increases.
Been moved and seconded on
Sorry.
the resolution for the wastewater rates.
Was the audience question about the sewer rate or the water rate?
This is, the audience question was about the sewer.
Sewer rate.
Okay, so what was presented is scenario 3.
Correct.
Yep,
Correct.
that was the one we chose.
On,
That was the hybrid.
yeah, the first board meeting in January.
Postage stamp 3, 9123.
That's right,
That is the
9123.
exhibit.
Yes, I just pulled it up, yeah.
All right. Any further discussion on this, the
Mm-mm.
commissioners?
Mm-mm.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Resolution is adopted.
And Commissioner, sorry for the confusion, but thanks for working through that with us.
That was like a Bermuda Triangle. I never have.
Well, and it was a holiday, so it's hard.
It kept changing. Every time I looked at it, it would be different. Now it's the Flying Dutchman. Now it's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
As you may recall, we asked for 2 separate additional scenarios, so it was getting a little.
when the agenda, we don't have a lot of time when the agenda gets posted, and we had a holiday in there, so it's easy for stuff to get missed and overlooked. So we'll work harder on the next agenda.
It was blank, then it was the water rates, and then it became the sewer rates.
So with that, unless there's anything else for the good of the order, it is 6:13 PM. I will adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.